Hey everybody, welcome to Backpacking with Buckley. Today I'm at Myre Big Island State Park in Minnesota doing a little overnight, and I am going to do something out of the ordinary for myself. Normally I would do an adventure video, but today I'm going to do a basics of backpacking video. I know subscribers, real original, right? There's a million of these out there. So first of all, if you're my subscriber, I'll try to put some stuff in here to keep you engaged. One of them being my soundtrack is going to have a theme to it, so bonus butt kissing points if you understand my theme. But if you're not subscribed, that's kind of why I'm doing this video, is to kind of tell you the basics of backpacking from my eyes, my perspective, none of which I guarantee is correct, but I'm going to tell you the ropes of like gear, maybe food, different types of campsites, whether it be dispersed or stealth, or reservable campsites like hike-in or cart-in or backpacking site, primitive. I'll try to throw some of those terms around, make sense of it for you the best I can, and maybe tell you a little bit about why I YouTube, or why maybe you should take videos and photos while you're out, because it's part of my hobby. And last but not least, the unexpected, which means who knows what kind of things I'll throw in the mix, because I don't script my videos, which is probably why they're a hodgepodge of goofiness most of the time. But without further ado, let's head out on an adventure to Myre Big Island State Park in Minnesota. So heading down the trail here, kind of tucked out of the wind, so maybe you can hear me okay. Let's start with a quick little tip, and that's in regards to mileage and to keeping up with the Joneses type mentality. So I do everything. I've gone anywhere from a cart-in site that's about 50 feet from the car to 10 or 12 mile days. I never get really intense with stuff, but this is how I do things. So where was I? I get a little stage fright. Some people came walking by. Anyway, mileage. So today I am doing a grand total of, I think, 2 miles to my campsite. But the important part is you can walk 200 feet or 25 miles. You're still a backpacker. So let's talk bugs real quick. Promethean, Picardin, DEET, all those things are bug repellents. It is April 5th, I think, and I just pulled a tick off my leg here, so there are ticks out early. And mosquitoes obviously are a huge part of probably all of North America, so prepare for that. So while we're out of the wind, let's talk a little bit about different types of campsites. There are a variety of definitions, which is why it's so confusing. But today I'm at a state park, and traditionally state parks will have, your RV sites, your tent sites, and then they'll have sometimes what they call a cart-in site, which is generally just a few hundred feet from the car. And then they'll have what they call either a hike-in or a backpacking site, which can be a variety of distances. I've seen them anywhere from a mile to 6 miles away from the car. And that's traditional Midwest state parks. So that would be the kind of the luxury version of backpacking. In addition to that, there's a couple other different types. You probably heard the phrase stealth camping, which again has different definitions, but the way I define stealth camping is to camp by definition where you're hiding in a place where it may not be technically legal to camp. Other people call it stealth camping, just finding a campsite, and I call that dispersed camping, which is what you see in a lot of videos where people just go into the woods and find a place to camp. So there you have the hike in, backpack in, stealth site versus primitive site or a dispersed camping site. All of those terms get thrown around pretty loosely, but those are kind of my definitions, I guess. So let's keep moving. So I have made it. So let's check out my campsite together for the first time. So where the fire pit is and where the campsite is supposed to be is clearly pretty, would be pretty cool under the right circumstances, but I'm going to tuck in back here, just off the trail, still within bounds of my campsite, I hope. Look at that flare. So I'm going to try and hang in a couple trees here just to stay out of the wind in case this gets worse tonight. Definitely notable to say that when you are choosing a campsite, you're going to want to look above you to see if there's any deadfall, or what they call widow makers. All right, real quick, let's do a brief basics on gear, starting with the big three, which is sleep system, shelter, and backpack. I'm going to start with sleep system and shelter because I recommend, if you're going to purchase those, my personal opinion is you buy those first, and then you can see what kind of bulk they carry and pick an appropriately sized backpack for that. So sleep system obviously is going to be your sleeping bag and or sleeping pad, under quilt, whatever additions may be that basically make up your bed, pillow, all that kind of thing. But the big thing being a sleeping bag or a quilt, there are two differences between those. I won't get into detail other than it has to do with a sleeping bag basically does not do a lot for you on the insulation that you lay on top of. So a lot of people save weight by buying a quilt and an insulated sleeping pad if you're a ground dweller. If you are a hammocker, you will use what they call an under quilt to basically keep your butt from getting cold when you're laying in a hammock. Those things are pretty easy to research, but that's a good place to start, is by looking at what kind of shelter you want. If you're going to try hammocking, I highly recommend borrowing one and trying to spend a night in a state park or in your backyard, just kind of to see if hammocking is for you. And then when it comes to tenting, you have a couple choices. You can do tarp tents, you can do trekking pole tents, what they call, or what they call a freestanding tent, which has actual like external poles to hold the tent up. Doesn't technically need to be staked down to remain intact. Again, that requires some research, and I'm not going to get into detail on it, but those are the kind of the options of sleep systems. Again, so you're going to want to pick between a sleeping pad, sleeping bag, quilt, a lot of things to choose from, but research is key on that. Feel free to comment or ask questions on this video if you'd like to. Happy to answer anything in more detail with my opinion, which is an important part. Go with your preferences. Don't keep up with the Joneses like we talked about before. Also, you've got to keep budget in mind. So if you do enough research, you can get some really great options out there without breaking the bank and without having to have all the big brand names that all the YouTubers we watch have. And then last but not least, backpacks. Real quickly, they can range anywhere in price from probably $50 to $500. They can range in weight from a pound to 5 pounds. The most common sizes, I would say, they often go by liter. So the most common sizes are generally probably, I would say, between 35 and 55 liters. And that, again, I would pick your sleeping system and your shelter before you purchase a backpack for that very reason. It's easier to purchase a backpack based on the bulk of your gear. So why backpack? Well, you'll probably notice that it'll be a reoccurring theme that's personal. But why do I backpack? I like to do what I call campsite hide and seek. So in other words, if I can go someplace and dispersed camp, I like to find really cool campsites. I think most backpackers would tell you the same message, that they do it so they can see the views, the challenge, the isolation in some cases, or the company of others without the company of others. In other words, people that are close to you but nobody else. So there's a lot of reasons to backpack. Some people just like to hike, see the world. But again, that's a personal answer. It's rewarding in so many different ways that it's hard to even begin to describe why I do it or why other people do it. I would just really highly recommend anybody give it a try that is interested. So there's a couple, I think, swans up here. I'm going to try and get a decent shot of them. I'm not even positive they're swans, but let's find out.
Son, you when you tried to be so good. Son, you just like they said they would. Son, you when you tried to go home. Son, you when you're alone. But I would not feel so all alone. Everybody must get stoned. Son, you when you walk around.
When you're out here, you're probably going to want to filter your water if you're out for a few days, or carry everything you're going to need. And there are many methods to filter water. Some of the popular ones are the Sawyer squeeze, the Catadine B-free filter. There are also pumps and tablets and a crazy scientific laser beam thing that you can use. I'll let you guys do your own research. I use the Sawyer squeeze and a CNOC or knock bag, C-N-O-C. They are different companies, but they work together magnificently to form one really simple water filtering system. Since I'm only doing overnight, I'm not going to show that off to you because I don't need to filter water, because I only need to carry about 3 liters in. So that's water filtering 101. Food real quick, shall we? If you watched any videos at all, you've probably seen that there's lots of dehydrated meals out there and a lot of different options for backpackers. My best advice is pick some food that you like, or try some food that you've never tried before you go, and then make sure that it's going to feed you. Unless you're doing an overnight or something like that and it's not a matter of survival, but you're going to be famished on trail, so you're going to want to eat something. And I struggle with a lot of the dehydrated foods. You maybe heard of Mountain House or some of those other dehydrated options, Packet Gourmet, Backpacker's Pantry, Peak Refuel. That's really all I can think of off the top of my head, but there's a lot of different options out there for dehydrated food. Some are good and some are awful. Bottom line is, bring enough calories. Tonight I didn't get super fancy at all. As a matter of fact, I didn't bring anything to cook except for coffee, which usually you just have a little, I have a titanium pot. They're not overly expensive, $25 or $30. And then generally you have one of these little stoves that you pair with a canister. They also make wood stoves, alcohol stoves, a lot of different options. And these are inexpensive. This is actually kind of a fancy model, and I think it was about $40. It's the MSR Pocket Rocket. But they make a lot cheaper models that are even lighter, I believe. These weigh like 3 ounces or something crazy like that. But anyway, I'm going to cook up some coffee here. And tonight I'm not cooking any fancy food to show off to you. Kind of bad considering the nature of the video, but I'm having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So a couple things to keep in mind. Perishables. You can get away with carrying some things in, like on your first night, but on any night after that, you're going to want to think about if your food's getting rotten or not. So I'm going to have some coffee, and then we're going to try and chase that sunset that I told you is one of the reasons I backpack. Try to maybe get a time lapse for you, something that's looking like a clear sky and a clear sight at the Sunset area. So I'm gonna fire up some coffee and chill out here for a little while, and we will catch up with you shortly. So real quick and easy tip, Folgers makes these, and so does this a little bit more fancy Black Rifle Company. They are coffee bags, so you don't have to go out and buy a fancy gadget to make coffee necessarily anymore. You can just buy these, essentially they're tea bag coffees, and you can make your coffee that way. And these are actually quite delicious. You just let them steep in boiling water for 3 minutes, and this Black Rifle especially is really strong and delicious coffee.
It's been 7 hours and 15 days since you took your love away. I go out every night.
So while you guys watch that with semi-decent music and in time-lapse, I am sitting here watching it from my perspective in real time, with the sound of the breeze and the frogs and the crows and the geese and all the other stuff I don't want to get too philosophical about. But it's beautiful out here. So I'm going to go try to make a little fire, even though it's a little windy. I'll kind of show you my modern day version of how to make a fire. It's not super difficult, but just in case you don't know, I'll make a quick little tutorial. And just kind of wanted to take a moment to tell you guys that this is a big part of why you backpack, is the silence and the solitude. I have literally seen a jogger today, and definitely haven't seen anybody for like 5 hours. So, and I'm in a state park close to a city, so even here it's great. So anyway, let's go hit that fire pit down by the lake. All right, apologies for the wind, but a couple quick things before I get this fire started. There's a lot of ways to do it. Some people use ferro rod or like primitive methods to start a fire. I love watching videos of that. It's not my personal style just because I'm lazy, but there's a lot of ways to start a fire. Some are like super like hobbyist, and others are just functional. I go with a semi-primitive method. It's called a fire starting cube. I think these are called Nesbit cubes or something. I don't know, but you can get them at Walmart. They say fire start on them, so the terminology is probably not important. And then these things these are called Bic lighters. I use that. So that's kind of my method of starting a fire. And since it's windy here, fire safety is obviously a major factor. I got a couple of bottles of this lovely lake water filled up just in case. And then before I go to bed tonight, I'll make sure and put out any embers, since I'm about 200 feet away from my campsite and I won't be able to watch to see if any embers start a fire in the grass or something. So fire safety. Smokey the Bear is right about everything. Watch some of his videos if you're curious about any details. So let's get the fire started. I'll kind of show you some basic ways to do it. Hopefully I have the angle right here, but there's a lot of ways to do it. You can do like a teepee thing or kind of a Lincoln log house. This is what I like to call kind of a lean-to, where I'll just put a couple of logs up like this on the right and then lean some kindling up against it with some oxygen in between the fire starter. Usually it does the trick. We'll see if I'm right or not. But I call this a lean-to, and it's kind of just a simple way to do it. I'm not going big tonight, so I just want to get a little fire started to see if it works. So I will set the camera up and let's see if my method is correct or not. But one of the biggest things is just getting some small wood or kindling, as most of you know the term. But the surface area has to be somewhat where the flame starter is, so that it starts up and then can obviously burn bigger and bigger logs as it starts. All right, so wind plus dry wood plus modern day methods equals a pretty roaring fire over here. I want to kind of conclude things here, wrap things up in a bow the best I can and as fast as I can. I hope I taught you some tips today. I got a couple more for you. I told you I'd talk about why I do a video diary of everything I do. It started with my sister Molly at Bohemian Adventurers, which we were a part of and still in our hearts are a part of. But we have a big family, and Backpacking with Buckley was born because I love doing it so much. It's not for the fame or the subscribers or the likes. It's more for the comments. You know, I really like interacting with people. I found some awesome trails and met some really awesome people on YouTube. And for the fact that my family can have something to look back on for a memory, hopefully for a long, long time, as long as YouTube sticks around anyway. So that's why I do that. And how I do it is the ultra lightweight method. I don't have fancy stuff at all. And maybe that's shown by my videos, but again, I'm not looking for fame quite yet. I have a fancy Samsung S21 phone, which is a really nice camera. So it does the trick for me, and I use something called a gimbal that stabilizes my shots when I'm not too lazy to carry it. You might notice the videos I have where I'm too lazy to carry it. And then finally I have a drone that I'm still learning to fly. So that I use editing called InShot. It's software called InShot. I do it on my phone from my hammock or my tent. Usually have it 99% done by the time I get back to my car the next day. A lot of that is because I enjoy doing it from my hammock. It's like my pastime, and it also frees up more time to be productive when I do get home, in lieu of editing video for 8 hours when my kids need attention and Whitney needs my attention and I miss them. So anyway, that's why I backpack, and hopefully I showed you all the other reasons why. I missed a million different things that I could give you tips on, so just know that you can find ways to get a hold of me, starting with the comments down below. Connect with me, and I'm happy to answer questions based on my novice knowledge, or I'm one of those guys that tries to be approachable, so you don't feel like I'm going to come at you with a bunch of ridiculous gear advice or say you have to have this or that, but I might be able to give you some basic answers to basic questions. So I'll stop by saying some pelicans flew over. Squirrel! If you don't know us, our motto is be yourself, be happy. Thanks for coming along for the adventure, everybody. I'll show you some shots in the morning. Other than that, we'll see you next time. I forgot to mention, bring a headlamp or a flashlight and be smart. Plan accordingly. Don't get lost.
They call me the bar breaker. You should kick me out the club. I'm a big bad wolf. I'm a Jameson Doug.